pledge? We normally do. Okay. Hey, you want? Everybody's waiting on me. On that note, I now call this meeting to order. If you please stand for the prayer and for pledge.
Heavenly most merciful Father, we ask that you bless this gathering. We ask that you create clear minds, clear conscience, open minds with an open conscience. We ask that everyone conduct themselves civilly and realize that we're here to do the business for the city of Lafayette. We ask that you be in our midst, that you guide our thoughts, you guide our words. We continue to ask for blessings for our first responders, those locally and abroad. We ask blessings for each one of our constituents as they continue to seek that quality of life that each one of us deserve. We ask that you bless the employees of the Lafayette Consolidated Government for their efforts that they give us throughout the years. We ask these things and all other things through Christ Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen. We welcome you to the LPUA briefing. We, as your representatives in the LPUA, welcome your involvement and encourage your participation. This briefing is a public hearing. If you wish to address the LPUA on any item on this agenda, please fill out the blue card request in the foyer. Normally, a request to address the LPUA blue card form must be filled out and submitted prior to the call of the agenda item. However, as chair, I'm requesting, since there's only one agenda item, I will allow blue cards to be presented to the clerk of the council until the presentation has been completed. I will make a final call for the blue cards at that time, but I recommend that if you fill out a blue card, you could always pass if you choose not to speak. If assistance is needed with submitting the request, staff is available to help. In the event a speaker has completed their comments prior to expiration of their allotted 5 minutes, any remaining time will be forfeited. If you have materials you wish to submit to the LPUA, please give those to the council clerk, Veronica Williams, seated to my left in the middle. In an effort to allow everyone the opportunity to be heard, the 5-minute rule will be in effect. Speakers shall refrain from debating, personal attacks, and from making confrontational or derogatory comments. I'm requesting that the first row to my left be used for media only. Food and drinks are not allowed in the auditorium, and all phones and electronic devices shall be silenced from this point forward. I'm also requesting that anyone who approaches the LPUA state their name and title for the official record. Meetings procedures are by resolution, not by Robert's Rules of Order. Documents including agendas, ordinances, resolution, and minutes related to this and other meetings can be posted online at www.lafayettela.com. Let's see, moving right along to our one discussion item. Jeremy, if you'd please read.
Recognize representatives of NextGen Bernhard Utility Systems to provide an update on a proposal to enter into an agreement with Lafayette Consolidated Government with reference to the Lafayette Utilities System.
At this point, I'm going to give the mic over to Councilmember Boudreaux to begin the discussion, seeing as he is the one who called for this special session. Councilman Boudreaux.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and I want to first thank you for approving and allowing this process to take place, this official briefing of the LPUA. I also want to publicly thank all the members who were able to sacrifice within their schedules to be here on what would normally be an off meeting night, that you made yourself available to come and participate in this process. Why did I request this? I think that needs to be known first. As you know, a couple of months ago, we became aware, it was made known that interest was expressed as it relates to possibly a management agreement with the LUS system. And as I understood it at that time, there were a few people who made inquiries to Mayor President Robideau, And then one who we're going to hear tonight actually came forth with the idea that they want to make an official offer or contractual offer. My concern was following that exchange, and after a couple of days of a media cycle, things relatively went quiet. I call it dormant. And there was really not much talk, not much activity, nothing was going on, but there was an undercurrent. And I felt that the people who needed to have the greatest amount of information to make the most educated and appropriate decisions on this was the LPUA. So I specifically called for a briefing of the LPUA as the governing authority of LUS. We knew that during a briefing that this is not an indicator of support one way or the other. This does not have a vote tied to it. No decisions will be made. But I felt personally that we needed to get the information out. We needed to make it public. We needed to be very transparent, as most of you all agreed and participated in. And that's kind of what has us here today. It had significant impact. I remind you that during the budget process, there was a proposal by the administration as it relates to the reorganization of LUS Utilities and LUS Fiber. A member of this body took that issue and wanted to delay that to further get information on this, as well as the future of LUS as we go forward. So it had some budgetary impact as it relates to us making decisions, being able to go and move, and the fact that no action was being taken. We now have an adopted budget, but we are still operating with an interim director at our utility department who fortunately is doing an exceptional job, but we need permanency. We need to know exactly where we're going so we could secure the future of LUS. So with that said, I felt it was appropriate to bring it forward now. I think there's a great appreciation shown, as we see by the turnout here tonight and some of the comments that was made, that people get to have a full, transparent opportunity to see everything that is going on. And it also generated the fact that there are other people who are interested, which is something that I think is important, because it takes away the idea that this was isolated off a single agency, organization, or company. I said at a public meeting during the budget that I have forwarded at least 2 requests to Mayor Robidor, suggested that they go to the mayor's office to talk about whatever proposals. And today we received a letter from Entergy expressing interest in this. So for me, in my form of governance as a legislator in local government, I certainly do not like things just lingering out there. I like to grab them, deal with them, do whatever we're going to do with it, and put it to bed, because there's a lot of business in this government that we need to be taken care of. So with that said, that is the reason that I wanted us to have this briefing. I'm really looking forward to receiving the information in addition to what has already been forwarded to us. I want to thank the presenters for honoring our request, for providing us with information beforehand and allowing it to be released to the public for others to view it beforehand. So I thank you all for that, and I'm looking forward to this process. So again, I thank you, Madam Chairman. I thank the members for being here, and this is a good indication of what the future of the city of Lafayette could look like. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Boudreaux. To reiterate, those of you who are maybe watching from home and want to see a copy of the document that we are going to be seeing tonight, you can find it on the LCG website in case you missed the press release that was sent out on Monday. Veronica?
Madam Chair, I just received word that AOC is working to get the live stream up. We do have it live on Ustream, but they are currently working now to broadcast live.
Okay, so if you're watching from home and you're not able to see it on AOC, you can go online to ustream.com and find us there and see our beautiful faces. All right, any other comments from the LPUA? Mr. Conk?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to set the tone of this briefing, at least from my perspective. And it's important to make the comment that neither the LPUA nor the council initiated the request for this next-gen proposal. This was requested by the administration, as was noted by Mr. Boudreau. And this is a proposal. It's not an official council agenda item at this time. I supported Mr. Boudreau's request to conduct this briefing because I wanted to extend the courtesy to the folks from NextGen to make a presentation. However, please understand that my participation tonight is not indicative of neither an acceptance nor approval of the proposal, nor is it a commitment to place it on any future council agenda. On July 23rd, we received an email from the Mayor President which provided the status at that time of his negotiations with the Bernhardt Group, or Bernhardt Capital, now referenced as the NextGen Group. And I'll quote from that. It said, "After I received the analysis from Bernhardt, I'm going to work with you, the LPUA and Council, to explore all of the potential pros and cons, all of the important considerations, and together we're going to do the right thing for our people and our city, whatever that turns out to be." I certainly look forward to that analysis from the Mayor President and what he will be proposing. Finally, addressing the economic impact potential for the city of Lafayette. Certainly, it's welcome, and certainly it should be some consideration as we move forward, if indeed we do move forward. But as far as I'm concerned, as an individual council member and a member of the LPUA, my focus is what is best for the customers and the shareholders of the Lafayette utility system. Lafayette citizens own LUS, and we must determine what is in their best interest. And that I believe to be a reliable, an affordable utilities provider with exemplary customer service. So I look forward to the briefing. I just wanted to make note of why I'm here and what I'm hoping to accomplish, and looking forward to what indeed will be the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Did anyone else have anything? Administration, Mayor, did you have some words you'd like to say? This mic is hot, but you're welcome to that one too.
No, this is fine. I wanted to see what it'd be like from the podium. I certainly certainly appreciate. Don't try to make me lose my train of thought. The
school board put the superintendent in the office.
oh, well, that's true. That's true. But we don't want to be like the school board. We so I certainly appreciate the fact that the LPUA agreed to have tonight's meeting. As I think Kenneth, you mentioned, we've had a lot of discussions with various folks about the LUS utility system. And as you mentioned, once I've stated that I wasn't interested in selling the assets, then a lot of those conversations ended. Bernhardt was the only group that came back with an alternative proposal, and it was at that point that I decided to allow them to continue their efforts by doing the due diligence. Subsequent to that, some other folks have come back in and said, we'd like to do the same. But what I want to emphasize more than anything else is this discussion, because we now have something tangible to look at as opposed to speculating what might be, is the most important conversation we could have as it relates to LUS and our utility system. It's an incredible asset that has served this community since the early 1900s. The attitude that existed in Lafayette to create it is the same attitude that existed to bring the university here. It's the same attitude that existed to bring fiber here. And it's the same attitude today that says we need to talk about every conversation, no matter how difficult. And if we can do something that positions Lafayette for the next 100 years, then we should have the conversation. We can't just be passionate without the facts. Tonight or Friday, we got the facts. Tonight, we discussed the facts. We get to engage in a conversation, which is all any of us really ever wanted out of this. Where it ends up, nobody knows. Whether we all like it, nobody knows. Whether enough of us like it, nobody knows. But to not have the conversation of where we can make improvements is not doing our job. So I thank you for doing your job, allowing us to begin this conversation, and whatever happens, happens. I support it. I think it's a very healthy conversation to have, and just as you and the folks behind me, I look forward to hearing in more detail the proposal that was presented to us on Friday. So thank you all very much for tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor. With that being said, let's go on and bring up Next Gen and Bernhardt. If you gentlemen want to come, ladies and gentlemen want to come up. I believe there's 6 of you. If you wouldn't mind, each of you introducing yourselves, your names, and start whenever you're ready. Thank you. Yeah, feel free. All the mics are live, so feel free to make yourselves at home.
Thank you for the courtesy of having us here today, and it's good to be home. Many of you know I grew up in Lafayette and went to school at Edgar Martin, and then went to Cathedral. Proud to have beaten Fatima in the first football game against Cathedral.
Well, if you would mind, say your name. I think
Jim Bernhardt.
Thank you.
Jim Bernhardt.
Okay.
Enjoyed hamburgers at Judisa and bowling crawfish at Girard Park. And when I was coming down here, what I call the Abbeville Highway, I used to take the bowling bus to Lafayette Lanes. So I'm from here. Went to school at LSU. I was so happy to get out of town, as a young person is, but I still call Lafayette home. My parents still live here. Since then, I've been building and developing companies. I've taken, with the management teams and investors, we've taken 2 companies on the New York Stock Exchange, built a Fortune 500 company in Louisiana, the only Fortune 500 company ever built in Louisiana. Today, we've invested in companies bringing forth as Brown & Root, Bernhardt Energy, and ATC here locally, with over 500 employees between them and Bernhardt Energy. What we do well is build companies, and I think if you check my reputation, you'll find out employees, community, shareholders have been well served with companies that we've invested in. These gentlemen are going to have a lot of details, and it's lengthy, an hour. We try to cut it down, but it's a lot of information. One thing I think that are like everyone, that I'm not sure, I didn't realize it, okay, our team didn't realize it, but Lafayette Utility virtually manages and produces none of their own electricity. 6% of all electricity consumed in Lafayette is managed by Lafayette Utilities. 60% is purchased from others. 35% is managed by CLECO. So when we talk about a management agreement to manage Lafayette Utilities, I think most people may come up with the suggestion that, well, we have our own assets, they're ours, we produce our own electricity, and it's good for Lafayette. And that's probably exactly how it was 100 years ago. But that's exactly how it's not today. Today, you buy 60% of your electricity from others. I think some of them are back there. And you hire somebody, CLECO, on a plant that you own 50% of, you hire somebody else to do it. You hire somebody else to buy your natural gas. So there's a lot of, the misconception here is, I think, you turn on the lights, we're producing in Lafayette. It's just not true. And it makes you very vulnerable to rely on someone you don't know, producing electricity, you don't know where it comes from, and you purchase it subject to availability. I've always loved Lafayette, and I'm unabashed to say it. I've always loved Louisiana, and I'm unabashed to say it. I've built my whole business career here. And I'm going to take a quote from Robert Bernard Shaw that President Kennedy said in the '68 election. Some men and women, we'll edit it for President Kennedy, see things that are and ask why. I, along with President Kennedy, I see things that aren't and ask why not. Why shouldn't Lafayette be the power hub of a new generation of power company? Why shouldn't our students, our children, have the privilege to work for a large corporation rather than move out of town? Why can't we do it here? Of course we can, but we have to try. We have to work together. And I said before, we want to come in here as a partner for the Lafayette community, and we want to have a place for your children and your grandchildren to be able to come here and work and be proud and have Lafayette known as not the oil and gas center, but the energy city in America in cooperation with ULL. Let me turn it over to Foster, who will have more of the details of our proposal. Thank you very much.
Fine. First of all, thank you all very much, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Foster Duncan. It's a pleasure to be here today. This endeavor that we're going to talk to you all about today is something that we've been talking about since I joined Bernhard Capital Partners some 5 years ago when the firm was founded. We believe that perhaps the most important ingredient when you think about this kind of endeavor is having an excellent, experienced team. What we've done is we've assembled what we consider to be a world-class team of utility executives, and I think it'll become more obvious as we go through these bios. But also, very importantly, they have complementary skills, and we've interacted with each other. Let me start with myself. I'm a Louisiana native. I grew up in New Orleans and have spent the majority of my career in the energy and utility industry. I have about 40 years of senior corporate, private equity, and investment banking experience. Prior to joining BCP, I was with a firm, KKR in New York, a private equity firm. But more importantly, and the reason I'm here today, prior to that, I was Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer of Synergy Corporation, a Fortune 250 energy and utility company, which is now part of Duke Energy. But also, maybe even more importantly, on the operating side, I was Chief Executive Officer of Synergy's commercial business unit, where I was responsible for all of Synergy's 19,000 megawatts of generation. Early, I held senior positions with LG&E Energy Corp, a large regulated utility IOU. And I was part of the Office of the Chairman, Executive Vice President with responsibilities for strategic planning and CFO responsibilities. Important to you all, what are my responsibilities should we get this done? I will manage all aspects related to the financial performance, budgeting, analysis, and corporate compliance of LUS. I'd like to introduce one of my colleagues, Jeff Baudier, who's standing at the other podium here. Very importantly, Jeff also is a Louisiana native, but more specific to this, he lived and worked in Lafayette for a number of years. He has more than 25 years of experience in the energy industry as an executive and an attorney, and most recently was the Chief Marketing and Development Officer at CLECO, where he oversaw CLECO's customer relationships across Louisiana and strategic growth. In fact, he was involved in the acquisition of NRG South Central Generating in New Roads, Louisiana. He also previously served as president and CEO of Louisiana Generating LLC, where he had oversight of some 4,000 megawatts of coal and gas-fired generation assets, as well as wholesale power to all of the Louisiana electric co-ops and numerous municipal firms across the South. As an attorney, Jeff was a partner with Phelps Dunbar in Baton Rouge, and here in Lafayette with Jones Walker. It was Jeff's work, though, with municipalities while at CLECO, which led him to joining the NextGen team. Jeff will focus on strategic and organizational planning and performance, as well as customer service, growth strategies, and economic development. The next two people I want to introduce here from our team are Jeff Eucnis and Ron DiGregorio. These two gentlemen work together at Exelon. What's important to know about Exelon is that it's the largest utility in the United States. Let me introduce Jeff Eucnis first, who's sitting at the end of the table here. Jeff brings nearly 2 decades of utility experience to NextGen, and have most recently served as Vice President of Corporate Development for Exelon. His 16-year career at Exelon spanned leadership positions really across the value chain of electric. It wasn't just one area. He was, for example, the chief operating officer of Exelon Transmission Company, as well as the chief operating officer of Exelon Microgrid Company. He's also led engineering functions. This gets really down into the operations, pursuing grid upgrade projects, all of this designed to lower costs to the customers. Jeff's responsibilities will be to lead new business development and innovation, energy management, power and commodity procurement, as well as transmission and distribution services and reliability. I'd like to introduce Ron DiGregorio, sitting to my left here. Ron has some 35 years of experience in the energy.
I'm short, but I'm not that short. You said standing next to me.
Oh, sorry. As president of Exelon Power, Ron was responsible for much of Exelon generation, including a lot of their generating assets, oil and natural gas, biomass, landfill gas, hydro, wind, and solar, in 15 different states as well as Canada. This is really applicable as we think about the requirements and needs applicable to LUS. He was also the chief integration officer of Exelon during the company's merger with Constellation Energy. He's got extensive operational experience and has led multiple plant and utility improvement initiatives. Let's talk about what Ron's going to be responsible for. He'll oversee all the operational matters, including generation performance, transmission investment opportunities and resource planning, maintenance, and capital investments. Finally, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Julius Bedford, sitting in the middle here. Julius is an associate at Bernhard Capital Partners and is involved in all areas of our investment activities. Very importantly here, Julius is the person who led the due diligence of LUS. He worked very closely with senior members of the LUS team, and he'll speak to some of that later on. Prior to joining Bernhard Capital Partners, he served as an associate at Rockland Capital, a power infrastructure firm in Houston, where he did the evaluation and analysis of investment transactions in the power sector. Let's talk about the next-gen overview just for a moment. You've heard about our team. We bring decades of utility industry experience, in which our proposal dedicates to really overseeing the management as well as the operations of LUS. Many municipal utilities like LUS across the company are struggling to address declining assets, an aging workforce, emerging technologies, while operating within constrained budgets. What NextGen will do is to partner with municipal utilities across the southeastern U.S. and use our experience and expertise to reposition and prepare these utilities for the future of the utility industry. Next slide, please. So where are we now? LUS has provided reliable, affordable service and has been a valued partner in this community. But as Jim noted, today 94% of LUS's generation is power produced by others. What else can we say about that fleet? It displays aging technology and high costs relative to other generation in the region. For example, LUS has no combined cycle generation or owned renewables. In addition, there's an EPA order which requires the correction of several non-compliance matters and deficiencies. LUS has a poor safety record today, particularly when we looked at vehicle accidents and job injuries, above their own internal benchmarks. There are potential coal environmental risks at Rodemaker, and cybersecurity and resilient risks need to be corrected. What does this all mean? Continuing to operate LUS to maintain the status quo, we don't think is any longer acceptable. Next slide, please. So where can we go? This is the time for Lafayette, which showed great resolve in being one of the first municipalities to advance fiber, to now take a similar step to becoming the utility of the future. Jim alluded to this. Our intention is to partner with the city and use our experience to transform this into a blueprint for the utility of the future. We want to bring that significant benefits to the LUS customers, its employees, and the city of Lafayette. So where do we see the opportunities? We think there are a number of significant opportunities for the city of Lafayette to take advantage of this great asset, LUS. by partnering with UL in 3 areas: cybersecurity, smart city infrastructure, and clean renewable energy. For example, by LUS partnering with UL's nationally recognized Center for Critical Infrastructure Cybersecurity, we think there's an opportunity to establish LUS as an international utility cybersecurity center of excellence. That is important not just for Lafayette, not just for LUS, but across the United States, one of the biggest issues we face. Think about this in the context of Lafayette being one of 5 gigabit communities. Lafayette can use its advanced fiber to do a number of things. We can advance or enable grid modernization, distributed energy resources, as well as advanced meter infrastructure. All of this is part of this whole notion of the advancement to smart city infrastructure. Other areas where we'll emphasize our attention will be to achieve a top safety record. We need to rehabilitate this water system, and we're going to do this all in the context of retaining competitive rates. Next slide, please. Let's talk about our 40-year commitment here. First of all, let's remember, and we've already said it, this is a 40-year partnership. This is not a sale of your utility. We're committed to enhancing the performance of LUS. Our commitment to the LPUA is we're going to operate with transparency and accountability, and what we want to do is to clearly communicate the strategic direction for LUS. NextGen is committed to financing all the operations and capital improvements. Importantly to you all, the city will retain ownership of these assets. We're going to manage LUS by establishing key performance indicators that will be standardized so that we can immediately identify areas that need to be corrected and improve on them. We intend to regularly report out on our progress and initiatives and arm the LPUA and the LCG with the information they need or you need to make informed decisions about the future of LUS. All of this is going to be done, though, in the context of the LPUA and LCG continuing to have the same governance and authority that you enjoy today. Next slide, please. I'm just going to speak for a moment about our NextGen's guiding principles. At the core of our approach, we have 3 guiding principles, and it really starts with improving customer experience, it's empowering employee success, and it's delivering financial benefits to the cities. We're going to discuss these in great detail during the rest of this presentation, so I'm not going to delve into it now. I'd like to now hand off to Jeff Baudier to talk about the LUS customer experience.
Thank you, Foster. Again, my name is Jeff Baudier, and I'm a director with NextGen. As Foster just described, our guiding principles and the approach that we took towards this proposal to LUS, as well as our overall business. We have customer first, and it's customers first for a very important reason, because customers first. That's our philosophy. As Councilman Conk very aptly stated, in this situation, it's even more crucial because the customers are also the owners and the stakeholders of LUS. So in our private industry and in our philosophy, almost every decision we make comes back to customer. And when we make decisions, we like to say the customer is in the room. And there's 2 questions that need to be answered anytime something is done. First is, what cost does this decision have on the customer? The second is, what benefit does this decision provide to the customer? And we will commit that every decision we make in the management and operation of LUS will follow those 2 questions. And how do we back up that commitment? Well, to start with, our proposal includes a 10% reduction in residential electric rates through 2021. That's the first 3 years of the agreement. We're confident that we can deliver results And so we're willing to make that commitment from day one. But during those 3 years, we will execute upon a series of identified strategic initiatives that will continue to drive low rates across LUS beyond 2021 in all aspects of utility service. We've already identified many of these opportunities in our due diligence, and this is just part of what we do sort of every day in managing companies. But I'll just go over a handful that we've pulled from our initial assessment to give you a sense of what we think the opportunities are. You've heard Mr. Bernhard mention that through its own operating units in the city, TJ Labe and Hargis Abair, LUS only produces a small fraction of the power that its customers need. That's partly because those plants are expensive and those plants have had high outage ratings, which causes them to not deliver their full value to LUS's customers. We will execute upon initiatives to drive the cost of those units down and make them more valuable and make them greater contributors to Lafayette. Procurement and third-party costs. Right now, LUS spends a significant amount of money going out the door to pay third-party vendors. One of those is the Energy Authority, which for a fee of about $900,000 per year manages the fuel procurement and power marketing activities of LUS. That's not the cost of the power and the fuel. That's the fee to provide the service. NewGen Strategies provides a great deal of the planning and budgeting process for LUS. And as we've mentioned previously, its largest operating asset, Rotamaker, is operated by the 30% owner, Cleco. What we would focus on is seeing how much of that activity we can bring back inside of LUS. How much more of that work we could have done by LUS employees and have those benefits brought back inside our own utility as opposed to having them go at elevated prices to outside suppliers. Optimizing general administrative costs. It's just the cost of running the business, the overhead, as we say. And we employ, once again, a very simple philosophy there. Can I look my customer in the eye and justify that expense? If I can't answer that affirmatively, then we don't spend the money. But we need to make sure that we run this business understanding that every dollar we spend is paid for by someone. And if it's paid for by the customers, it better be justified. We mentioned the costs at Rotamaker 2. And frankly, Cleco, as an LPSC regulated utility, has a different business model than LUS. Cleco gets a rate of return on its capital investment in the plant. That means, simply put, the more money it spends, the more money it makes. That's not the case for LUS. But LUS, as the 50% owner of that plant, has the right to give direction as to how investments are made in that plant. And LUS, as the one with the eyes closest on the benefits to LUS customers, it should make sure that we exercise those rights to ensure that the operation and investments in Rotamaker make the most sense for the future. We also need to grow customer base, because one of the best ways you can reduce cost is by adding customers. And there's two primary ways to do that. Most of my colleagues in the power business recognize that the utility is an essential catalyst to the economic development business. We believe that LUS should be a key driver in bringing new business, new industry to Lafayette. We're going to demonstrate that immediately by bringing our headquarters here, along with 400 employees, which, as you'll see from our reports, will contribute to another 250 indirect jobs and almost $3 billion of value over the 40-year term of this agreement. But we want more NextGens and more CGIs, more Stullers, more large industrials that will help grow the population and benefits to Lafayette without relying completely on the cyclical oil and gas industry. We can also expand our service territory where possible, and there has been a long-term agreement in place with Slumco that has served the parties well over the years. That agreement is going to expire next year, and LUS has exhausted its ability to acquire additional customers under that agreement. I believe that things will work better if Slumco and LUS see the mutual benefit in reaching an agreement for the future to allow for the growth of both parties rather than going into lawsuits over expropriation and territorial expansion. It's a smart thing to do. We also need to make investments, slide please, that will improve performance and service. One of the first things that Jeff Stewart did when he became interim director was announce that he had entered into an agreement to procure short-term wind PPA to supply a portion of LUS's load. We commend that decision. That is a move in the right direction, and we need more of that. This PPA will provide a temporary solution over a few years, but we see huge potential for distributed solar generation with energy solar, with energy storage that is now becoming competitive in the long term with natural gas. There is the ability to use transmission to earn income. Utilities are investing in transmission. The reason why is they're getting paid to do so. We will explore ways in which Lafayette can qualify its existing transmission assets as well as execute new transmission projects which will earn revenue recovery in the MISO system rather than having, as is the existing case, where LUS is only a payer for transmission services. We need to get the full fiber service to all of those remaining 40 lift stations. We can't rely upon a citizen seeing a siren flashing on top of a lift station and to call a number to notify LUS that there's an overflow in a sewer station. We also need, as Foster mentioned, to satisfy that EPA order without driving up rates for wastewater customers further. And finally, we can repurpose the facilities that we've already retired in the Curtis A. Rodemaker facility and in the Doc Bonin facility and turn those assets back into valuable revenue sources for the city instead of being abandoned properties as they currently are. Slide, please. There's a lot of talk about the future. There's a lot of talk about the utility of the future. And it's apropos here because Lafayette has positioned itself as the city of the future. Lafayette has made great strides with its fiber utility, and as we all know, has achieved international notoriety, and it's well-deserved. But your electric utility and your water utilities are lagging behind. It's ironic, actually, in the city that has positioned itself so perfectly to take advantage of the fiber infrastructure that you've built, and that has put a stake in the ground to say that we will be the high-tech city of the future. I've met extensively with Dr. Mark Zappi and Terry Chambers and understand what they're doing in renewable energy and energy efficiency. It is amazing that we are not doing more with UL to have LUS be the platform upon which these renewable projects and these sustainability projects are being launched. We have AMI meters, and we know that that allows us to to do certain things, but an AMI meter is like a brain. Right now, LUS is using only a minuscule fraction of the capability of those AMI meters, and it's going one way right now. What's happening is LUS is monitoring the usage of customers and allowing things for automated controls. However, what forward-thinking utilities are doing is recognizing that that AMI meter is it's a two-way interface. And customers of the future are using those meters to tell their utility what they want. They're going to say what kind of power we want, when we want it, how much I want to pay for it, and what resource I want it to come from. To businesses, how about if you got contacted by your utility to let you know that a motor in your facility is going to fail before it failed, or let you know that a breaker is going to trip before it breaks? How about a grid that not only routes itself around an outage, but self-repairs the outage without any work needing to be done? If you think I'm making this stuff up, if you think that doesn't exist today, go ask Matthew Delcom over at UL and look at what he and his team are working on with world-class partnerships and consortiums regarding big data analytics, because that's how all this is done, through those AMI meters and big data analytics and critical cybersecurity infrastructure. Go ask CGI what customers of the future want from their utility, and they'll tell you that all this stuff exists today. These are the products that we want to bring to the customers of Lafayette. These are what the owners of LUS are entitled to, and these are the things that will transform LUS into the world-class leading utility of the future. Second only to our customers are our employees. And I'm going to ask Ron to take a few minutes to tell you what NextGen intends to do with regard to the LUS employees.
Thanks, Jeff. Ron DiGregorio, thank you very much for having the opportunity to discuss this opportunity with you tonight. Foster did a nice job in introducing all of us, and he mentioned that I have 35 years in the utility business. I do. What he failed to mention is the early part of my career, the first 7 or 10 years, I was a technician at the Philadelphia Electric Company. All my peers here were worried that a guy from Philly comes down and can't say Lafayette properly, so I've been getting coaching on that over the last couple of days. But you know, I started as a technician with the Philadelphia Electric Company, and I was blessed with career opportunities as that company grew and found growth opportunities. It provided for me to also have some opportunities along the way. But you know, what I think we learned, and all of us here represent this in some form or fashion in our careers, is employees are some of the key stakeholders as we do these kinds of things. I mean, change is obviously important. It's an issue for folks. And so we appreciate not only that fundamentally that employee concerns and attending to employee issues in any kind of transition is important. We also, you know, feel strongly about, given our due diligence in the review, that there's really good performance at LSU today. LUS today. I've gotten so much coaching, I'm getting my acronyms messed up a little bit. You know, some of the areas in which we operate need to be enabled with greater resources and greater insight and greater benchmarks and greater experience. But by and large, fundamentally, the LUS system performs well, and it's because of the dedicated, obviously, because of the dedicated commitment and support from those employees for the customers. If we go to the slide, we'll talk to some of the things that we're making as a cornerstone part of our opportunity proposal, you know, things that are very important to us and I'm sure important to some of the people in this room as well. All LUS employees will retain civil service jobs, pay, and benefits. There will be no changes there. We'll be on the ground to listen and understand. Communication is key. I think through any transition, I'm going to talk a little on another slide about what does that really look like. Okay, so you say you're going to consistently communicate. You're going to talk to us about what kind of progress we're making in any transitions. We're going to have that. I'm going to talk in a little bit more specifics of what that looks like. We'll support with responsibilities. This opportunity is not to come run the system. The system's run well. It's to bring to bear collaboratively that which is run well with a lot of other strength and experience that exists because of some of the opportunities that all of us have been blessed to participate in our careers. And so it's really a collaborative thing, and that requires a good commitment and a good dedication and super communications throughout. We will attend and help, I think, as safety is critically important to all of us in these fields, especially in the industrial nature that we have in utility system operations. We will invest heavily in a safety program. We've seen some statistics that show, that the system hasn't met their own goals and benchmarks around safety. It's critical for us, not necessarily because of metrics or OSHA recordable rates, but because it means that the people that we love and know and work in this system go home every day more healthy than they show up. Safety is important, and it will be going forward. We think we can bring a lot to help in that regard. And in the industry, this is not a local issue. In the industry, the demographics of the workforce lead toward challenges with what we call knowledge retention and transfer. But it's really around how do we continue to engage the employees and look for opportunities through training programs, developmental assignments and such to continue to grow a bench strength internally so we can continue to source and grow together. And we have a commitment in that regard. I mentioned that I have a slide here that talks about, so you talk about engagement. What would it really look like for us if we engage in this opportunity together? One is, right away, it's identifying the building blocks, working collaboratively, understanding all of the key functions, and in doing so, understanding where are the areas that folks feel like we're doing really well in, and how do we make sure we take that and leverage that, and where are the areas where maybe we're not doing as well in, and through self-assessment, where we want to bring some resource in. That'd be early work. That will prepare us for day one. Day one is a term used to describe, the day that the deal would close. The opportunity would start, and we'll work to identify and more fully spell out the detailed plans for some of the strategic initiatives that Jeff spoke about. We think we will need great employee and leadership engagement as we develop those. So we'll do that collaboratively. And then that will set us up for a 100-day plan where we will start to execute and have LUS execute on those plans. Going forward, the employees continue to perform the same work that they do. Really, for the employees, I think this will be a very transparent transaction in the way we're talking about this opportunity, and I think it provides some great upside, and we're excited about that for not only the city, but for the employees of the system at present. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Euchness, Jeff Euchness, who's going to talk a little about our management model and what that looks like. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Jeff Euchness of NextGen, and I also thank you for the opportunity to present to the city of Lafayette tonight. I'd like to explain a little bit about how this partnership will work. So this illustration depicts the relationship of the city, the LPUA, the mayor-president, and the employees of LUS with respect to NextGen. First, let's note that the expectation is the LPUA will have the same ultimate authority over LUS rates as they do today. NextGen cannot unilaterally determine what rates to charge for electricity, water, or wastewater services. Rather, as it exists today, LUS and NextGen will bring the justification for electric, water, and wastewater rates to you for approval, rejection, or modification going forward. Second, the Mayor President and the LPUA have approval authority over the individual NextGen would bring forward for the position of Utility Director. It would be our proposal that he or she be nominated by NextGen as an employee of NextGen for your approval. Furthermore, you'll have authority to direct us to remove that person in the future. Along with this position, we'd propose a finance manager or finance director also as a NextGen employee. Third, NextGen and the utility director will provide to you, the LPUA, standardized and routine reporting on a variety of key performance indicators, or KPIs: outage duration, outage frequency, safety, new customer installations, for instance, supplemented with consistent communication on progress towards all the strategic initiatives that my colleague Jeff explained earlier this evening. Also, discussion of all our employee engagement efforts, as just described by Ron. Finally, to the employees of LUS, NextGen provides support, analysis, and additional expertise so that they may be able to continue to perform their jobs safely, continue to provide reliable electric and water service, and continue to achieve customer satisfaction. In all, NextGen, in partnership with the LUS employees, will ensure the proper operation and management of the LUS system while adhering to the governance of the LPUA with respect to rates and the governance of the LPUA and the mayor with respect to key management positions. Next slide, please. So now we've introduced ourselves. We've spoken to our plan for customers, our approach to employees, and the management model. Now let's focus on the details of the offer NextGen has made to Lafayette. Next page, please. First, $140 million in cash at closing. This is for the city to use as it sees fit. It will not be tied to the city using it to invest in utility and water systems. We feel it could be leveraged. Our estimate is another $350 to $400 million of additional borrowing may be available with this cash infusion. Potentially over $500 million for the city to use. Secondly, we will pay off the debt raised by LUS against the assets of the utility systems. The city will no longer have encumbrance or liability against the utility assets that you will continue to own. Third, we recognize the valuable funding LUS has provided and is expected to continue to provide for the city. We will commit to an average of $23 million a year for the entire 40-year partnership. Furthermore, the payment will be structured as a percentage of base utility revenues, unlike today, where there is a formula involving revenues, less operating expenses, less debt service costs, which then determines the contribution in lieu of taxes that LUS will make to the city. NextGen will accept the risk for managing expenses and remove that risk from the city's ability to receive these annual payments. Fourth, as outlined by my colleague Jeff, a commitment to an average of a 10% reduction in residential bills for the first 3 years of this partnership. We evaluated the average 2017 residential bill to be about $1,300 a month, a year. So this bill credit, some folks probably pay $1,300 a month, not the average. This would equate to about $130 a year each of LUS's 55,000 residential customers. Fifth, NextGen in the city will have aligned incentives on bringing new customers to the LUS system. If base utility revenue growth exceeds 2.1% over a 3-year period, NextGen and the city will share 50-50 in that revenue growth above that 2.1% threshold, with a cap on sharing of $64 million over the term of our partnership. Let's work together to bring new industry, new businesses, and new residents to the city of Lafayette. Finally, and to reiterate, the city retains ownership of its utility and water and wastewater assets, and it retains ownership over the rates NextGen can charge for these services. So it's our intention that these benefits delivered to Lafayette do not end at this $1.3 billion package. Rather, it's our intention that this is only the beginning of the economic development opportunity in the city and surrounding areas. There are over 2,000 municipal, electric, and water cities in the United States, serving over 49 million people. In the Southeast, there are over 400, and in Louisiana alone, there are 21 public utilities serving their municipalities. Our target is to establish partnership with 50 of them. Next page, please. If Lafayette decides to be the cornerstone of a new industry, providing partnerships, as we are describing to you this evening, with municipal utilities throughout the Southeast, we will locate, build, and employ for that headquarters of that business right here in the city. Next page, please. We will hire 400 employees to manage that business that originates right here in Lafayette. We expect it to achieve Fortune 500 status, and Dr. Richardson of LSU and the Lafayette Economic Development Authority have estimated this presence would lead to another nearly $3 billion in economic development and growth potential, for a total of over $4 billion of opportunity for the city to consider with this offer. Again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to introduce ourselves, explain our intentions, our commitments, and now I'd like to introduce my colleague, Julius Bedford, to explain how this would be a win-win for NextGen and the city of Lafayette.
And Madam Chair, while he's coming up, I've received a note stating that AOC is still working to get the technical difficulties resolved. They do have a notation on the screen for viewers to sending them to live Ustream. They will re-air it in its entirety tomorrow, Wednesday at 5:30.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Jeff, for the introduction. Thank you, members of the LPUA, for the time to present our proposal this evening. My colleague Foster had an opportunity to mention the role I was able to play in the evaluation process for the proposal we're submitting today. But I do want to make sure we take some time to pause and acknowledge the contribution that members of the LUS team made to helping us put that proposal together. I think I see some of them in the audience today, but truly the professionalism, the diligence of the LUS team members, in particular, names come to mind, Antonio O'Connor, Jeffrey Stewart. They were really excellent, very helpful, and we really do think that their efforts here speak a lot to the depth of the talent pool that's already in place at LUS, so we're greatly appreciative. We also appreciate the access we've had to work with the city's consultant, NewGen Strategies and Solutions, and really benefit from their knowledge base, established knowledge here for the system. So wanted to make sure that got said this evening. And turning back to the slides here, it's worth reiterating as many times as possible how these three principles will continue to guide every decision NextGen makes over the term of the partnership: improving the customer experience, empowering the employees, and delivering economic benefits to Lafayette. But I also wanted to take some time in the next slide to demystify for you all how NextGen also hopes to benefit from this partnership and truly make this a win-win proposition for all parties involved. And NextGen's not really unlike many other private companies that identify opportunities to work alongside and partner with cities and provide services that those cities would probably otherwise be able to provide themselves. But there's usually a nexus in intentions and capabilities that produces a win-win scenario for both the private party and the municipality. You don't have to look outside Lafayette to see some examples of this type of relationship. For example, Republic, a company that's headquartered in Phoenix, Arizona, has over 2,000 other municipal clients, provides the waste collection services here in Lafayette. Even more vital service, arguably, is the provision of ambulance services here in Lafayette. Acadian Ambulances is another excellent example of where certain partnerships can work to the benefit of both the private and private parties engaged. And we think that that general principle is something that we're truly going to carry forward into this proposal that we have in front of you today with NextGen. But I don't want to just speak in generalities of kind of public and private partnerships. I also want to make sure that you guys understand today the really unique things about LUS as a company and Lafayette as a city that make this an especially attractive opportunity for NextGen. It's important you guys know why we're here in particular. Speaking to LUS first, and I'll pull a bit anecdotally here. I've had the opportunity to work on numerous different investments, transactions across the power and utility spectrum, industry spectrum, and it is not every day when you come across a company, an asset like LUS that has the level of stability, predictability, that already has in place a very strong core workforce, and also shows the ability to grow its brand and its loyalty and to grow its business. It's not every day that you come across a company like that that you would like to partner with. We think we've assembled a team here as well that has a lot of talent and a lot of experience that can continue to improve LUS in the manners in which we think it already wants to improve. We think that by producing those benefits for the customer, for the employees, and for the city of Lafayette, that NextGen will also benefit. It's a true win-win. And not just LUS as a company, there are real unique characteristics of Lafayette as a city that make this a particularly inviting place to make a home for what we expect to be a new Fortune 500 utility business. In particular, the city's led in many different industries in the past, oil and gas, fiber. We think that we have a vision for creating a utility of the future that aligns remarkably well with Lafayette's vision to create a city of the future. More importantly, our visions don't just align, but we feel that we often have an opportunity in this city to actually be an active participant in creating that economic development. When you reach out to businesses and you ask the things that they care about, that their employees care about, a lot of it comes down to the things that we can help with in providing the most fundamental services in the provision of water services, wastewater services, and the provision of electricity in a manner that the modern utility customer now seeks to demand. Jeff Bodia did an excellent job of detailing exactly what it means to be a utility of the future for customers and for future industries that may want to consider coming to Lafayette. And we think that the citizenry here, its representatives, share that vision. And lastly, we also acknowledge that our ability to be successful as NextGen is really going to be a function of our ability to recruit, retain, be able to partner with some of the sharpest minds in engineering, cybersecurity, and innovation. Also, as Jeff mentioned earlier, you don't have to look far when you're already in Lafayette and UL's just down the block from you. We think there are remarkable opportunities to benefit from having a resource like the university in the same city as our headquarters. So, in a nutshell, Lafayette, LUS, we see it as being the perfect cornerstone, the perfect foundation for the future Fortune 500 business we'd like to bring here. So with that, I'd like to thank you once again, turn things back over to Mr. Barnard.
Thank you, Julius. You know, one thing I like to point out, to my knowledge and belief, this is the most transparent proposal ever given to a municipality. We didn't ask for an executive session to discuss pricing. We didn't ask for an executive session or talk to someone, here are the prices, this is what we're going to charge for electricity, a 10% reduction, this is the financial benefit. We gave the proposal for the whole world to see. People, competitors alike, the citizens, so that speaks to who we are and what we are. I've never, in my history, on a competitive situation, have someone offer a proposal and submit our prices. Take a look. Now I'd like to summarize with my friend, former Governor Kathleen Blanco. She told me one time that, Jim, in business, you're successful, judge, if your shareholders get dividend. So I've done my whole life in public service. And somehow, all that work, I've hoped to make a small difference in the citizens of Louisiana's lives. Same reason you're in public service. This proposal gives you an opportunity to make a difference today with lower utility rates, the future, for jobs for your children and grandchildren, to help bring industry into Lafayette with the new modern utilities. So today, you have an opportunity to consider this proposal and to make a small difference or maybe a large difference in the citizens of Lafayette's lives. I thank you. And we'd be happy to answer any questions at this time or whenever.
Well, thank you all so much for your presentation. It's very informative. I want to go ahead and announce again that this is the final call for any blue cards. So if you wanted to submit a blue card to Veronica Williams over here, our clerk of the council, this is your final call. So go turn that in. I'm next going to ask if any LPUA members have any questions before we get started. I see Councilman Conk has one. Turn it over to him. Oh, never mind. I do not see that. Then I'll go to Councilman Boudreaux. Give it to you.
Thank you.